Good afternoon. My name is Parker Stribling,
My name is Kyle Millett.
and we are your hosts from Mamba Mentality Book Club, and we discuss Kobe Bryant's words of wisdom with different speakers each day. Today, our speaker is Jedediah Collins, a financial planner and a former NFL player. We all want to be rich one day, and Jedediah Collins is here to help us with that. Don't forget you can earn points for things like PS4 and Xbox gift cards, Chick-fil-A and gaming headsets in the prize shop by just commenting down below and asking. Jedediah, take it away.
All right. Well, Parker, Kyle, I appreciate it, fellas. And truly, I want to make sure this is a session where everybody is going to take something away. I don't typically have very high expectations because I want to meet and exceed them. So if you learn just one thing in this time together, it will be of value to me and to yourselves. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and you guys can see that all right? Beautiful. All right. So as I was just introduced, my name is Jedediah Collins. I'm a certified financial planner, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. As student athletes, I want to combine two elements of your career. That is your mindset and your money. So it feels a little elementary. I don't know if you're still being told to do this, but if you have a pen and paper in front of you, take it out and write down your name. I'm going to circle back to exactly why this step is so powerful, but go ahead and write down your name. Then there's going to be two vertical lines I want you to write down on your page. And then on the other side of those lines, write down one of your goals. Maybe that's become a starter. Maybe that's become an all-star. Maybe that's get better grades. Maybe that's enjoy the summer. What are your goals at this moment? Just write one down and don't have it become a millionaire or financially free, anything like that. Write down something specific that you can actually achieve and accomplish over these next couple weeks or months. And here's going to be the first question I wanted to ask you. What do you think separates who you are from the goal you are trying to achieve? And we'll wait a second to get a response. And in just regards to time, because I want to get to my conversation with Kyle and Parker, I am going to answer this question, but writing that down, what separates you from your goals is this word called potential. One many of you have probably heard throughout your career as a student or as an athlete, and it's typically meant as a positive, but I came to understand it as more of a backhanded compliment than anything. What it said was, you have everything within you to achieve this goal. You just haven't done it yet. So what is the way we are going to achieve this? How do we separate ourselves from this gap? How do we eliminate this potential? Well, that's what we're here to discuss. As you mentioned, I was in the National Football League for 7 years, and I got to play on a grip of teams. A lot of people see this screen and say, man, this guy was pretty good. I see this screen and say each one of these teams called me, cut me, and told me my dream was over. It was only when I began to internalize and began to look at each of these rooms, each of these buildings I got to walk into, the players I got to be around, that I started to steal from them. I started to take from their success. And just as Kobe Bryant stole from Michael Jordan and Michael Jordan stole from Dr. J, I started to steal from each player I was around. And that is what we're here to do, because those concepts, those principles, and those behaviors are how I went from who I was to what I want to accomplish, which just so happened to be becoming the best fullback in the NFL, making me the best in the world. This is a quick picture I like to share for two reasons. One, Luke Kuechly, the guy on the ground, was the defensive MVP that year. 2, I scored a touchdown, but most importantly, number 3, if you look at the top of the screen, that hair takes a lot of time and effort. That doesn't just happen. So I always like to give it a little pinpoint back. But one concept, one thing I started to see, 10 different locker rooms. I saw 3 words everywhere I went. Be a pro. It became a response, became a mantra. It was a mindset, and it was the intention that don't be late for a meeting, be a pro. Don't forget your play, be a pro. Do your job, be a pro, or there is a line out the door of people who will do it for you. So I began to challenge, I began to question, well, what was the difference in the pro mindset? What was it made up of? And those are the 3 things we're here to talk about today. The first one is going to be the intention around confidence versus cockiness. Now, I want you to write down to yourself, because you're going to have a follow-up question around what do you think the difference between cockiness and confidence is? Each year we let in a new set of rookies to come into the locker room. And often these rookies would come in with their voice and say, hey, I'm here to take so-and-so's job. I want to get this contract. I was so good in college. And what they didn't realize was this external voice, this psyche that they came in with was actually a negative impact on what they were here to really do. What they didn't appreciate was the first person, and really the only person they needed to tell about how good they were going to be, was themselves. So it wasn't an external voice, it was an internal voice. That idea of confidence being internal, cockiness being external. So as we saw a group of rookies gather together, our coach would sit them down and say, how excited are you? How much do you enjoy this? The energy would build. These guys would start to high five. He would point to pictures up on the wall and say, that's us at the Super Bowl. This is a 10-year veteran. Do you feel a part of this? And they would say, yeah, and they would scream and start to bump each other. And he would tell them all to sit down. He'd say, that's your first mistake. That is cockiness. You haven't earned anything. You don't deserve anything. You have to come in here with confidence, believe you're supposed to be here, tell yourself you're supposed to be here, and then go out and show other people. So what I want to do, and one of my passions, is taking these concepts, taking these behaviors, and translating them to the world of money. Now, you see 2 vehicles in front of you, one the train, the other the personal automobile, a car. And I want you to answer a simple question. What do you think has changed in the world of money over the last 20 years? It's now 2020. Let's call it 2000. What has significantly changed over the last 20 years? You can go ahead and write in a response to that. As you're writing in a response to that, I want to tell you a story about the train industry and the car industry. It was back in about 1916 when there was 200,000 miles of train track around the United States. It was the main form of transportation. Why? Because it took a long time to build these train tracks, but once they were set, all you had to do was get in, sit down, and go exactly where the conductor was going to take you. A train was an easy and reliable source of transportation. But then in about 1916, Henry Ford started to roll out these ideas of the personal automobile. And what he was able to do was say, I don't think you want to go where the conductor is taking you. You want to go where you want to take you. So he began to give the people in a car their greatest gift of autonomy. That means they sat in the driver's seat and they got to choose where their destination was. Well, how you responded to what has changed in the last 20 years, I don't think it was probably the train industry's gone extinct and the car industry's picked up. That happened a long time ago. What happened in the money business is the train industry was called pensions. It was called Social Security. They were lifetime income streams and sources that perhaps your parents and your parents' parents relied upon for their retirement and their future. So as you look at the train industry, you see it took a long time to build. Much like a pension, you would sit at one company for 20, 30, 40 years. And then once you built those train tracks, you would just get to sit in a pension, and it was going to take you exactly where that company wanted you to go. Well, the personal automobile, some of you will know words like the 401k, the IRA, the brokerage account. These personal individual vehicles began to take over. Companies did not want to be relied upon for your financial future and your retirement. So they shifted the responsibility to you. And I'm here to alert you today, you are all driving your own money vehicle. No longer will you get a pension. No longer can you simply depend on Social Security. Now you have to sit in the driver's seat of your personal automobile, your money vehicle. So that has been the most significant shift over the last 20 years. Why I'm on a mission and a passion to teach you about money is because this idea alone, this concept is new. You didn't need to have financial education for survival in the past. You definitely need to have it today. So where does that relationship begin? Something I also want you to take out and write down is, what is your money script? Who are you and what is your relationship with money been? Are you a money avoider? Do you see money as bad and something that you may not deserve to obtain in your life? Do you see money and begin to worship it, begin to believe that it is the answer to all of your problems and that you will truly never have enough because money is just that good? Do you see money as your status? Your net worth is your self-worth, and you begin to identify who you are and what you are by your money intake? Or lastly, do you see money as something that brings you anxiety and brings you a constant concern? These people are very frugal, but they are almost too consumed with the idea of money that it begins to build pressure on a daily basis. There is no right, no wrong answer to this, but you're beginning to drive your money vehicle. You have to understand, what is your relationship been with money so far? So one of the items, after you define the difference between cockiness and confidence, I want you to write to yourself, which one of these four mindsets, these scripts, do you identify with? Which one of these do you begin to understand as who you are? I apologize. I cannot see the responses. Is there any questions?
No, so far.
Okay, perfect. So getting back to the be a pro mindset. Again, I want to go through my content and then begin to have a conversation because I think there will be even more value had there. This idea of confidence. I need to be internal voice confidence, not external voice cockiness. The second definition is going to be trust. Now, it was my first day in Philadelphia, my first day as an Eagle. And what I got to do is I got to show up and I got to say, okay, today is a day I get to start making the team. I get to start progressing and start seeing who I am. Well, it was my first prep practice, my first play, chin strapped, excited, probably a little too excited. And as a fullback, I lined up, moved before the whistle, moved before the ball snapped, and lo and behold, whistle blew and it was a penalty. I stood up, had to run to the sidelines. Our head coach, Andy Reid, came up and spoke directly to me. Again, I was a rookie, so he said his first words directly to me. He said, "Son, we can't beat ourselves out there." Now, he probably called me son because he didn't know my real name. And he let me understand one simple principle of this lesson. We can't beat ourselves. That meant him as the head coach, the other coaches, my teammates, the scouts, the entire organization was going to have to trust that out on the field, I would help the team. I would not hurt the team. That trust of who you are going to be on a daily basis, how you are going to show up, is vital in both your career as well as your team chemistry. So as you look at this, as you identify it, who and how do you build trust? There are two relationships of trust. There is a trust dividend where it gives you more to your relationship, and a trust tax where it takes away. I would love to challenge you, write down one person you want to build trust with. somebody you look at as a teammate, as another student, as a coach, as a teacher, somebody you want to build trust with, and begin to identify how you're going to do that. All right. Yeah, okay. Okay. Is it still going? Why are you not sharing? Technical difficulties?
Somebody responded to your money question.
Excellent. And what was it?
They said money should be a reliability, but not for everything.
Excellent response. Money should be something you can rely upon, but not for everything. Why did it just... It is not letting me share my screen. Can you see my PowerPoint?
No, not right now.
No, it's still back on the... All right. It is telling me StreamYard is not responding. That's not good.
Our producer's gonna take care of it.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Are you playing?
She's gonna help you out right now. Jedediah, I think your screen is frozen.
There we go. All right, it's good.
We're good. We're back. Can you? Yeah, you can hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going to skip the game for the moment because I want to get on to the conversation. So if I asked you $100 bill, what would you go spend it on? Some people mostly would say, hey, I'm going to go buy some shoes or a shirt, maybe go out to dinner. If I turn that $100 into $1,000, people start to say, well, I want to save up for a car, a vacation. I want to save up for a new video game system, something like that. And then if you start to ask somebody and say, what would you do with $10,000? People then begin to hesitate and say, well, what should I be doing? How could I use this money to change my future? What you've just been introduced to are the three different mindsets around how people handle money. Are you a spendor, a savor, or an investor? This is an identification of who you are. Again, that money script is kind of the history of you. This is how you handle money on a daily basis. I'll be the first to say, I spent every dime of my first paycheck from the NFL. Now, I was a spender. That was my relationship with money. I made money. I spent money. Nobody had taught me or told me any different. Full disclosure, I bought an engagement ring and my wife and I are still happily married. So it was a good investment. But the idea that I spent my first paycheck was a terrible financial plan. So I had to go from a spendor to a savor. How I was going to do this? Well, I started to look at things I wanted to do with money and I was saving up for them. But then I was introduced to this third box, this one that very few of us have ever been discussed or introduced to, and it is an investor. And where spenders see money on a day-to-day basis, savers see it on a month-to-month, maybe a year or two out, investors start to look at money through a decade-long lens. They start to see how long money is going to go to work for them. Why they do this, and something that we can't dive too deep into today, but is the eighth wonder of the world declared by Albert Einstein, called compound interest. He said, those who understand it, investors, get paid compound interest. Those who do not, spenders, they pay compound interest. So this idea of the eighth wonder of the world is so powerful. I wanted to give you a simple example. As you begin to see yourself as an investor, you begin to look up at this $5 cup of coffee. Everybody hates this example, but it is an easy example to comprehend. If I went and bought a cup of coffee for the next 30 years, it ends up being $54,750 of coffee. Now, if I changed my mindset, my behavior, and how I use money, I could go put that to work. I can put it into an investment account, and it can go and create. That idea of create, the eighth wonder of the world, creates money, and it will turn into $343,000 of freedom. That's $5 a day going to work for you. Now, can you save $5 a day? I don't know. Can you save $5 a week? Can you save $5 a month? Whatever you can do, maybe it's $100 a month. Whatever your purpose is, you have to begin to see who you are with money and define yourself now as a saver and then an investor, because you start to see money in a bigger and longer time horizon. So perhaps one of my favorite examples, and one I like to share, and then we'll get on to the conversation, is the idea that a pro is confident in themselves, has trust amongst their team, and then pros make plays. They make you learn your name. So down in New Orleans, it was about 118 degrees. When it's that warm, you walk out, your shoes are already squishy, you're sweating, everybody's tempers are a little bit shorter. My responsibility on this play was a simple chip block, which meant I was going to run past the defensive end, throw my elbow into his side, and then just walk out to the flat. I accomplished my job, and as I jogged back to the huddle, this defensive end, just so happened to be a 310-pound veteran, 10-year Pro Bowl player, came and grabbed me by the face mask. Now, as he was laying in a barrage of insults that Eric and I agreed I would not share today, but he said something that I will never forget. Grabbing me by my face mask, insulting me, he said, "I don't know you. I don't know your name." Now, whatever name he could have called me, whatever degrading thing he was saying, "I don't know your name," cut the deepest. Why? Because I knew as a professional, knowing my name meant he saw me as a part of the team. He saw me on the roster. He saw me as somebody who's going to go help the team win a Super Bowl. I had in that moment an opportunity. I could be a rookie, cocky player and yell back at him, use my external voice. I could break the trust of practice, try to fight him and prove my worth that way. Or I could walk back to the huddle and I could make a play. Just so happened the next play, me and this 310-pound Pro Bowl player, we're going to go head to head. I showed you the hair. I had a little bit more weight. I was a little bit crazier back in the day. And I put my face mask into his chest and I knocked him on the ground. And as I walked up to him, he lifted his hand up. I swiped his hand away. And I simply did one thing. I pointed to the name on my forehead. I pointed to my name. Without saying a word, I had become a pro and I had made this veteran learn my name. That encompasses exactly who you have to become as a student and as an athlete. You have to be confident, build trust, and go make plays. And as you look at how to do that with your money, your responsibility of how you add value to yourself is to employ your dollars. Make them go to work for you. So as you look at this, this is a system. And again, This is a big system that we're not going to be able to define today, but I wanted to give it to you as a way to categorize your dollars. Society, that is going to be taxes. Everybody's got to pay into it. And believe it or not, taxes are a great thing. You look at the time right now, 30 million people are living off unemployment. That is part of our society system and our tax code. Past choices, those are going to be anything due before the first of the month. Debts, bills, subscriptions. Present choices, those are things I'm going to go out and spend on a day-to-day basis. I got to eat, I got to get clothes, I got to have fun. The future choice, if you ever want to have FU type money, invest in future you. This idea of putting your future self first. When I get to deliver to rookies in the NFL, I always say, put 30% to 30-year-old you. Can you do 30%? Probably not. I'm going to show you a quick strategy on what you can use when you start getting your paychecks. And then that compassion choice. This is the give bucket, and this is the one that you choose something or someone you want to help. Something I want to ask real quick is, which of these 5 do you think is the happy bucket? What is the choice that is going to lead to your long-term happiness and fulfillment? That is something I would love for you to write in, and it is something that we're going to have a follow-up question here in a second. So as you see these 5 choices, I now have reorganized them to prioritize who you should pay first. That future choice slides all the way to the left and is the first person you need to take care of. Future you. Can you pay yourself before you pay society and taxes? Absolutely. Those are 401k accounts, IRA accounts. They are very good tools. There is another vehicle out there called a Roth account that if I ever get to come back, I will explain exactly why that's a great advantage. But making sure money goes to future you. Then you pay into society, you get to past, get to your compassion, and you land in present day. You land with what you want to go spend. So I threw up some high-level percentages. Take a snapshot of this screen because this is how you will divide up your paycheck, your dollar. Every $1 bill, Jeff Bezos, the wealthiest man in the world, Mark Cuban down by you guys, or me and you, we all have these 5 choices. We all get to employ our money. We all get to make it go to work for us. So I made $1, I saved a dime. 10% goes to future me. A quarter goes to society. Why? Because I choose to participate in our world today. A lot of us have to deal with past choices. Again, debts and bills. That's going to be a big, big chunk of our check. And then 1%. Give me a penny for your thoughts on a person, a place, or a cause you want to begin to support. And then lastly, what is beautiful, what lands in your checking account at your bank is the money you get to go spend freely because you've taken care of these other choices. Now, when we get to Q&A here in a second, I want somebody to ask me about these, and I want somebody to answer which one of these is the happy bucket. So as you have identified, why I challenged you to begin to write with your name. You wrote your name down first. It is because you are becoming a pro. Your name signifies your brand. As you see your name, what is one skill you are confident in? Something on the field, something in the classroom, something you like as a passion. Maybe I'm a writer or a painter. What is something you are confident in? As you go through your career, you're going to have to recenter yourself around that idea of being confident. What is one person you trust or one person you want to build trust with? This is a very important one. Writing their name down on a piece of paper makes you statistically more likely to achieve it. And then value. Where can you add value? Do you have a project? Do you work for somebody? Do you have a team? Do you have a goal? What are you working towards, and what is something you can begin to add value to? And then as you look at it from becoming a money pro, you now realize you have to drive your money vehicle. That is why we called the book I wrote called Your Money Vehicle. It's not my money vehicle. It is yours. You have to trust that you are going to begin to use money as a verb. Use money. You are going to become an investor. And then you're going to employ your money and make sure those 5 money buckets are categorized to how you want to use them. So the last thing I want to challenge you, and the last thing you were going to follow up and write to the Beyond the Ball team, is when you see your name, what do you want people to see? You wrote it down, hopefully at the top of your page. I know it feels funny, but write out your full name. And when you see it, what do you want your name to reflect? As a student athlete, your name becomes your brand. It becomes everything that is associated with your play, your performance, and your future. What do you want those to be? Personally, Jedediah Collins, I'm a worker. I'm going to get in the building before most people, and I'm going to outwork most people. I'm authentic. For better or worse, you're going to get the real me. And then I'm a creative. This took me a long time, but I love to write. I always have pen and paper around to scratch down creative thoughts and notes. What does your name reflect, and how do you want to build that? I am on a mission. I have a passion to empower people, both from a mindset and a money perspective. I wrote a book. It became an Amazon bestseller. It's actually becoming an online course in about a week or two. And I love getting feedback. So for you, connect with me on Instagram, Twitter. I joined TikTok. I'm trying that game out. But mostly, I would start to look at, hey, can I email this guy and ask him a question? Can I connect with him on LinkedIn? How do I go about doing something like that? So boom. Boom, perfect. Stop share. So now I want to stop sharing my screen. And so now I want to begin a conversation with you guys, Parker, Kyle. How exactly you guys want to get rocking and rolling?
All right. I'll start. I remember reading some information about you, Mr. Collins, and when I was
no, Mr. Collins, Jed.
All right, Jed. You once said, I was hit with the realization of how physically damaging the game can be, and I was afraid I was going to walk away without any money to show for it. It was fear that led me to my education, and education eventually led me to my passion. My question is to you, how hard was the transition from football to finance?
Man, great question. And it is really neat that you took to that fear piece, because football players are big, bad, ugly dudes, and everybody thinks we are fearless. Every player that steps on that field feels it. Confidence is the idea of pushing that aside and still going to do your job. And so the transition for me was a beautiful one, because I had begun studying. Each offseason was studying for my certification in financial planning and knew the road I wanted to head down. So I had a direction. Did I know what I wanted to do or where I was really going to go? Absolutely not. The hardest transition for me to go into a corporate room, go to an office every day, is nobody clapped for me anymore. And people think that's like really egotistical or silly, but it's true. You from 10-year-old to 30 years old, I prided myself on applause, on approval, on coaches and teammates telling me I was doing a good job. And so that transition, that idea, that be a pro, that name, I wrote my name down the day I knew I was done playing, and I started to ask, who are you? What are you? You're no longer Jed Football. What are you going to become? And I went and I worked in wealth management for a few years, and I loved it. I got great experience, but I woke up as my transition moved. I woke up to the reality that I don't want to help wealthy people get wealthier. I want to help young professionals start to get on a path where they can control and own their future. So as I went to work, I started to define who I was and what I wanted to go do. And that's really how my transition went. But I talked to players of all different sports on a daily basis that transition is difficult, because they have never done what you all are doing today, which is identifying yourself as more than just an athlete.
I appreciate that response. I have one more question right now. When you were in your football career, what were some of the biggest money mistakes that you went through?
Ooh, good question. Well, I would say that first paycheck, I mean, it wasn't necessarily a mistake, but I probably could have planned for it better. I got into a rental property. You know, I got some money and I was excited and I was like, hey, this seems good. I'm going to go invest in a rental property. And I jumped in something that I had no idea about. And turns out there were bats in the attic and it's just some crazy stuff. You know what I mean? And so what it taught me was it's not a race. You need to start making your money go to work for you, but you don't need to just jump into something you don't understand. Warren Buffett, one of his greatest skills is he says, I don't invest in anything I don't understand. Why he is a major owner of Coca-Cola is because he loves cherry Coke. He has it at every meeting. That's why he became an investor, is because it made sense to him. I love cherry Coke. I bet other people love cherry Coke. So that idea of financial mistakes is really, really challenging. But one people often overlook with professional athletes, because in the locker room, as I began my education, guys would come and ask me questions. Everybody points to, this, the first rounder blew all his money doing this, doing that. I talked to a lot of guys who were first generation money. Some of them first generation Americans, most of them first generation college graduates. And their biggest financial mistake was not prioritizing their future self. They had family, they had friends, they had people that they wanted to support. This I made it, we made it mindset. And so I would talk to rookies on an annual basis about how beautiful it was they wanted to support their family, but how more important it was that they needed to support themselves when they hit 30, 40, or 50, and then be able to provide a great opportunity in life for the rest of their family as well. So those are some financial mistakes a lot of people make. One I would alert all of you to is the first mistake the vast majority of Americans make is credit cards. If you are in credit card debt, you are paying on average 20% to just have money sitting there. That means if you have $100 of credit card debt over a year, you're going to pay $20 to just have that money sit there. So if I could encourage everyone to avoid one mistake, and it's actually one of the chapters in the book, it is understanding credit cards and understanding why the minimum amount due is a huge, huge mistake.
How long in your career did it take to realize that was a big mistake and learn from it?
I would say I had the unfortunate blessing of getting cut a lot. So early in my career, I had my eyes opened. My rookie year, I got that first paycheck and it was gone. And then I got cut and there were no more paychecks. That was when I started to wake up and started to go read personal finance books. So again, it was not the journey I had ever dreamed, getting cut 12 times, but what it did was it woke me to the reality football was going to be over and I was going to have to capture this dream. And that is something I get to do today. I got to deliver to many NFL teams this offseason with my mission of educating players around this dream they set out was not to be drafted as a rookie. The dream is to end your career with some money and some memories. And I think we need to re-identify what the NFL dream and what professional dreams really look like. It is not getting there. It is succeeding through there.
Okay, I have a question. Sometimes when I'm playing like games like 2K and Madden and I see the term cap hold, I wonder what that means. Can you explain?
So that is the salary cap. So what is so neat about the salary cap is I loved in the buildings I went in finding the salary cap guy or gal. And what their responsibility is we have, let's call it for round numbers, $100 million. Sounds endless. It sounds like a ton of money. But then you come to realize I played on the Detroit Lions. Matthew Stafford, Ndamukong Suh, Calvin Johnson made more than the other 50 guys on the team. So the salary cap hold is how much of this year's salary cap that player takes. So they might say, hey, I'm going to pay them $30 million this season, but that's not what it reflects on the salary cap. On the salary cap, it might just be 20 million because that other 10 million is spread out over different years. So there's a difference between how much a player makes this year and what the salary cap hit is. And no different than those 5 choices in your money buckets. When a player comes in and says, hey, Bob, I want more money, bro. I caught 12 touchdowns. Where's my paycheck, my payday? Bob says, I don't have a pot of gold over here. This is not the end of the rainbow. If I give you more money, I have to take it from Steve and Sam over here. You can have more, but you're taking it from them, not from me. Often players' egos and just their idea of what is happening, they get misunderstood in how that works. Again, 5 money buckets. If I take from this bucket, or if I want to put more in this bucket, I have to take from one of these 4. Your salary cap hit and hold is a wonderful idea, and it's actually a microcosm of what's happening in our society today. The 53-man roster, 30 of those players are all making minimum. Minimum is still the great salary, but the idea that the average out is much, much higher, it is because of 53 players. 3 of them are making 15 to 20 million, and the others are all making minimum. So it's an interesting balance, very similar to a corporation. The CEO makes $1 million, and then there's 100 of employees making 50,000. No different.
Also, when I've seen Zion Williamson's contract, and it says he has a guaranteed $20 million his first 2 years on the Pelicans. And if he asked you what to do with his money, what would you tell him?
That's a great question. So what's interesting about basketball contracts are they are guaranteed. Football contracts, for the most part, are not. So you could sign a $50 million deal and in year 3 get cut, and 25 of that million is gone. So what I would challenge him to do first is identify what lifestyle he wants. Everybody, if I gave you a lamp and said, rub it, and a genie pops out, and I don't know if you saw the new Aladdin, but Will Smith crushed it. Everybody says, I want $1 million. And I say, okay, great. Why? They start to define what they're going to do with it. And I say, okay, well, then you don't want $1 million. You want all these things you think $1 million is going to bring you. Number one, $1 million is just a funny number. To some people, it's nothing. To some people, it's everything. So you need to begin, Zion, with what do you want? Who is on this journey with you, and what do you want to provide and offer them? What lifestyle do you want to be able to live? Do you want to spend $10,000 a month? Do you want to spend $5,000? Do you want to spend $50,000 a month? Once we dial in your lifestyle, then we can begin to build a plan. I got to deliver to an NFL team yesterday, and the rookies is, number one, how much they're going to spend on a daily basis. And number two is how much they want to pay their future selves. So I would tell Zion, how much is going to go out the door, and how much do you want to prepare the rest of your life? Then we can get into insurance and actually removing some hazards to what he just came into, which is wealth. And then number two, how to make those monies go to work for you, which is the investment game. And we get into stocks, bonds, real estate, and all those things. But the idea that once you have wealth, and people are good at making money, they are not good at managing money or protecting their money. A simple trick for Zion, and I'm sure he has a team, so he doesn't need my advice, but ideas like trusts. Trust is a thing for the wealthy. It's something I never grew up knowing what a trust was, but once you get a little bit of money, you get introduced to all these terms. And that's all I'm trying to do, is educate people, introduce them to what this other world looks like.
Yeah, we have some questions from the comments.
Oh, cool.
What made you want to change from football to finance?
It's a great question. So I was coming up on 30 years old. I had just had my first daughter, and the game of football is one of passion, which means you have excitement, you have fear, you have anger, and you also have love for the game. I love the game of football, but the reality was I came to a place where I started to see that I was not invincible. And once that glass shatters, it's about time to start getting off the football freeway and start moving on. And I actually wrote a big article about it. It's called The Cocktail Party. If you're interested, I can shoot it to you. But it was this idea that I was earning my position. I was a lead blocking fullback, which meant, and despite what I look like today, it meant I went and I moved grown, angry men against their will. And my position was not one where, I got to go shoot shoot jump shots all day, or a receiver gets to catch balls 1,000. My job was one of will, not of skill. And once you're not willing to lead up into the hole and move that player, you're going to have to go find another job. And it was about that time. Do I like that?
Someone asked, do you like finance more than football?
So, no. There's never going to be something that replaces football. The fraternity, number one, being in a room full of guys who are all unified from completely different backgrounds, but unified for a single objective. Any of you who are in team sports, you know that feeling. I grew up a basketball family. It's a very similar feeling in basketball. The idea of competition and the idea of the intensity of the game. Football is even more particularly intense because we don't get many attempts. Each game is significant. Each game means so much. What I do love about the idea of money in finance is there's no clock on me. In football, I was always fighting father time. I was always trying to battle with, go get this, because in 2 years, you don't know what the heck's going to happen. Right. I love the idea about being in the financial world, about having my own business. I know where I'm going to be tomorrow. I don't know exactly where I'm going to be in 2 to 5 years, but I know what I'm going to be doing. That is really encouraging me. And the other idea that I got to find in football, but it really translates into finance, is I can always get better. That's what's amazing to me is people are like, well, how did you learn to write? Or how did you learn to speak? Or how did you learn about money? Go try, go learn, and you're always going to get better. I consider myself a great loser because I welcome loss. I don't mind it at all because each time I lose, I learn. Each time I fail is feedback. And if you have that mindset and you have that power, you're going to be fine, just as long as you keep progressing. So the difference between winning and losing and success and failure, to me at least, winning is external. I won against you. I beat that number. I won something. Success is internal. Success is progress. I got this much better today and I lost. I was successful because I got better. That is a different mindset. That is a different measurement. And I would encourage you, find success every day. Find something you're getting better at.
What was the good, bad, and ugly of pro sports for you?
I mean, the good is easy. The good is, getting to live out a childhood dream, getting to compete against the best in the world, getting to claim the idea of being one of the best in the world. And obviously the paychecks weren't that bad either. The bad was what very few appreciate and realize is the time commitment, the preparation. Everybody sees you on Sunday Night Football and says, oh, man, I would love to do that. And my response to them is you got to come out, July 28th and line up in 118-degree weathers and go and hit that dude 25 times who knows it's coming, who's prepared, and who is also trying to earn a job doing it. That's the bad. Is we called it the suck. Like training camp is meant to not be fun. But that's what makes it great. So it's an interesting connection to the good and the bad is what makes it worthwhile. If people handed out championships, nobody would want one. You got to earn it. The ugly is what I came to wake up to. And the idea that if you line up 100 of your role models, 100 heroes, these guys or gals played professional sports, the vast majority of them have nothing to show for it. The vast majority of them are broke or on financial hardships, divorced, addicted to something. That is the ugly. And what I am challenging professional sports, the modern day athlete, the LeBron James new edition, The modern day athlete is no longer identifying themselves as just an athlete. What I love about the beyond the ball mindset is it is approaching the ugly of sports. The ugly of sports is that 11-year-old dream. Even though they went and achieved it and lived it, very few of them walked out of that locker room with the dream still intact. So the ugly is that nobody educated, nobody prepared, nobody thought about what the rest of their lives looked like. And that's where I want to come to from the financial side. You look at groups like the ones you are participating in, they are trying to address and approach this issue of sport and ball are great. There is no replacement for them. I think sports is going to be one of the biggest reasons why the protests are going to come to fruition, because people see and understand one another on a different level through the lens of sports. Mm-hmm. But this idea that we are failing the athlete from a college and a professional level, that's the ugly. And that's something that I want to start to identify.
Someone asked, how do you settle in different cities that you've lived in playing from different teams?
Oh, so I landed in outside of Seattle area called Bellevue. Why? Because I married a girl from Bellevue, and it was a very short conversation of where we were going to live. But traveling around was an amazing kind of side effect of my journey. I got cut, and I got to transfer and go to 12 different cities. I got a lot of free sweatshirts of teams, which I still work out in. And, I got to experience a lot of cool cities. So as I would arrive, I would Google, what is the one or two things I need to see while I'm here? Because I don't know if I'll ever be in Cleveland or Detroit or Chicago again. What are those things that I need to experience? And then then I go to the building in the room and say, who from this group am I going to steal from? So the acclimation to new cities, always seek out what they're known for, and pack light. My dream was to always need a second suitcase. I would go with the duffel and hope to be able to, text my mom and be like, hey, I ran out of clothes, send more clothes, because I stayed on the team long enough.
Oh, what college?
I like this one. So I am a Washington State Cougar. We are up in the eastern side of the state of Washington in a town called Pullman. I'm a very proud Coug, so thank you for asking. And yeah, we are what some would call the best college town in America. And, we got a pretty good football program, but we got a lot of other things to offer too. If you're into wine or agriculture, anything like that, we have a good time up there.
I had a question for you. Do you know why NBA contracts are different from NFL contracts?
Absolutely. So it is all based on our unions, and the union is just the active players. Once you retire, you become a legend. And where the NBA has, let's say, 30 teams and 10 players a team, that's 300 guys. The NFL has 2,000. That is a much, much more challenging group to unify and to fight for specific things like that. That being said, football also has a much higher injury rate. And so the owners, looking at their athletes as investments, not as human beings, they look at it and say, I can't guarantee your contract. You haven't earned it, because Jed, you might be here today, break your leg, and be gone tomorrow. My salary cap cannot afford me to pay every guy that happens to. And so most guys in the NFL are earning their weekly check. If you get cut week 8, you don't get week 9 check. And that's what makes the game so much more intense and beautiful. Baseball is actually, the Major League Baseball is the best union and has the best contracts. That's going to be challenged. And why they're finding it so hard to get back to baseball is because their union is so strong. And now the owners are trying to say, hey, this is the deal, line up and play. It will be really interesting to see how their union responds. The basketball union has said, we have enough guys that we can go here and do this thing. Football is going to go play because we need the checks. If you don't play ball, you don't get paid. And that makes it that much more needed.
Thank you for answering that question. I've been having that question for a long time now.
Yeah, hey, do you have, so in sport, in life, you do not get what you think you deserve. You get what you have the leverage to negotiate. Why not me, but if I'm a 5-year Pro Bowl wide receiver, I can say, I'm not going to show up to training camp because you need me. I was never in a position where I got to tell the team they needed me, so I couldn't negotiate a better contract. I didn't have that leverage. The NBA has more leverage than the NFL because less players and less injuries.
All right. Well, we're coming into the closing, and I just wanted to say thank you, Jedediah, for coming out today for us. We really enjoyed you. Thank you for the students. Also, don't forget about your 2 p.m. class. Thank you.
Thank you for all the information you shared today. It was really, really helpful.
I appreciate it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of the day. Own your financial future. Check out your money vehicle, and I hope I get to come back and talk to you guys some more because we just started scratching the surface. Thank you for your questions, and enjoy.
Thank you for your time.